bold moves all day. Outside pass.
Come
around
on.
the outside.
Come on.
I'll tell you what, the podium is in play. Big move. Here we go. Here we go.
All at once.
Here we go. And he went for it.
This is for the podium.
Man, he came from nowhere.
Let's see what he does here in the corkscrew.
Oh, he's going.
Whoa!
Here he goes.
Oh!
Oh!
Side to side, but Jimmy Johnson goes off track, and Grosjean takes the position. I think his car's okay.
Grosjean made the huge lunge from way back. Jimmy defending for on two wheels. That was like Fast and the Furious in the corkscrew.
Ah, look at the man. Here he is, Romain Grosjean. He has become a fan favorite this year in the NTT IndyCar Series. That was an awesome drive from 13th on the grid to the podium.
You need hard-working tires for a hard-earned victory. Firestone tires for driving IndyCar legends. For pushing the limits and pulling it off. For turns 1 to 4 and handling your 9 to 5. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
Follow your favorite driver and see what we see through the exclusive IndyCar onboard camera feature only in the official IndyCar app powered by Entity Data.
Only 20 minutes, a lot of pressure where the drivers can get a fast time in. This will be qualifying for a Porsche Sprint Championship, Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West by Yokohama. I'm going to turn it over to Joe Peak and Ashley Freiberg, who will describe that intense 20-minute session for you.
Thank you very much, Dick. Yes, indeed. We are here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, ready for qualifying for the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West Series by Yokohama. And on our screens now, we've got Blake McDonald ready to lead them out. Fastest in practice, too, so he gets the clear track ahead of him. I'm Joe Peak with Ashley Freiberg, here to bring you the action in this qualifying. Ashley, this is a track known for passing being somewhat difficult. How important do you see this qualifying session being?
Yeah, absolutely. Your qualifying position is going to be crucial here when it comes to the races. But in all honesty, there are a few decent passing zones here. Turn 2 is pretty good. If you're feeling like you have a good run, maybe into turn 5 or into the corkscrew if you're feeling gutsy. But yeah, I mean, you've really got to make sure you make the absolute most of this qualifying session. And with the Yokohama tires, it takes a few laps to really get to the peak of the tire, especially with the weather today. It's not super hot out, so I'd imagine you can get maybe 2 to 3 laps that really you have the peak of the tire underneath you and you can maximize it. So with qualifying, you have to find a good gap. You don't want to be stuffed up behind someone too much. Make sure you have nice, clean air and, yeah, setting a few good laps in, because not only does this qualify you for race 1, but for race 2 as well. So really thinking ahead.
Well, and you talked about getting the tires working and getting used to this track out here. They've had these 2 practice sessions, but since that second practice session, we've had multiple sessions with different brands and compounds of tires. That often is known for changing the grip levels. How much do you think they'll be able to push from the get-go, or do they have to kind of ease into it to figure out how the tire will interact with this different rubber?
So I had an experience with this actually racing at Barber. We were racing alongside IndyCar with the Firestone rubber as well. And those first few laps in qualifying definitely feel a little bit different with the different rubber down. However, it doesn't really change the balance of your car a whole lot. It just changes the grip level of the track. So depending on the asphalt here, the surface as well, we might find that these tires get faster later in the session. So once more Yokohama rubber kind of washes away that Firestone rubber, it'll be interesting to see if we have a few people going faster at the end.
And as you can see, for those watching at home on the left-hand side of the screen, we've got our timing tower, which shows a few different colors. Now, for those wondering, we've got 4 different classes, essentially 3, but we have our 992 Pro-Ams running. Those are going to be your drivers with the white numbers. The blue numbers are going to be our 992 Masters. And then you've got the yellow and white numbers. Those are our Caymans. You've got the yellow of the Masters and the white colors of the Pro-Am. Mostly you can just consider them all one class, as we actually only have, I think, one of our pro drivers here today, as I believe Sean Kelashadi, from what I last heard, is not likely to be able to take part in this session. We're just getting the first laps now underway as drivers start to cross the start-finish line, trying to set their quickest time. And with such a short session, only 20 minutes, Ashley, and 2 different types of cars, those GT4s and those 992s out here, I wonder how difficult it's going to be on such a short lap to find that clear track.
For sure. I mean, really the front runners here, Blake, Casey, and James, are really going to have to manage that spacing very smart, because you might catch the back of the Caymans pretty fast. So at the same time, this session could potentially go yellow at some point. So you want to make sure you get those quick laps in right off the bat, because you just never know what could take place.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can't try and hold out until the end. You've got to be on it pretty much all the way through. Watching our sector times start to come in, interesting to note that James Lee was the fastest in the first sector of those who have gone through so far. Blake McDonald, let's see if he can maybe respond in the second sector. Already Casey Dennis is going to beat him in that one. James Lee also going to be fastest on that second sector. Anybody farther down from him maybe could try and get a quicker time, as we're getting ready to see them go by us once again on that first timed lap. And Blake McDonald sets a 1:30.1, quickly toppled, my goodness, 3.5 seconds difference by Casey Dennis. And then James Lee goes even faster by 0.3 of a second, now down to 1:26.3 on the first lap. We saw James Lee be very quick in the first practice, although he wasn't able to top the second practice, Ashley, but my goodness, has he become one to watch out for.
Yeah, and he just came off of 2 wins at Circuit of the Americas, so I'm sure that that boosted his confidence level, and clearly he could see that he is growing every single time he's been behind the wheel. He's getting quicker and quicker, so I'm sure he's got his eyes on a win here as well.
Kyle Washington, our fastest in Masters right now, 3rd overall. Great lap from him. Kevin Woods, the local guy here, and the 294 is going to be 2nd in that class, but 5th overall right now. Down in our Caymans, now that we're getting some laps from them, looks like Michael Galke actually our quickest so far. Eli Kogan, for some reason, not very fast on that first time through. In fact, I think he looks like 2nd to last potentially of our Caymans on that first lap. I wonder if he had a major mistake, especially with how much faster he looked in both practice sessions.
Yeah, you never know, and making sure you take that out lap to really prep your tires as well is very key. You can see things mixing up again up at the top of the field here. Casey Dennis jumping up into P1, Blake McDonald close behind. James takes it back again, though. So as we're seeing, the tires are really coming into temperature here, and laps are getting faster.
Yeah, I heard the drivers mentioning after the first practice session that getting the tires into the perfect temperature took a couple laps. So I'm not too surprised that we're seeing the times continue to drop in these second or third laps of the session. The real question will be, once we get past that mark, will they continue to fall down? And I talked about Eli Kogan needing to make up some time. Well, I thought I had seen him jump up, but it looks like he still remains in 22nd. Galke still our leader down in the Caymans, and as soon as I say that, the 50 car jumps up to the top of the GT4s. In fact, he sets a time of 1:31.2 that time through. That looks to be close to 2 seconds quicker than our next car down in the Cayman class, which is currently Richard Kenzie in the number 28 machine.
And in the Masters class, Kevin Woods still holding pole position. He actually didn't get very many laps, I don't think any laps at all in our first practice, so he's doing an amazing job. Jim Walsh right behind in second in the Masters class, and Laura Eli as well. She had to basically show up with a brand new race car after COTA, so she's having a good weekend so far as well.
Had a few teething problems as it came to a halt in practice 1 as well, but they got it turned around, did quite good in practice 2. And yeah, Kevin Woods up to the top there, 4th overall, our current points leader. Laura Eli now jumps up into 2nd in Masters on top of things. Josh Conley jumps up into 6th overall in the 299 car, seeing constant change on our timing and scoring sheets here. At what point does that start to settle in and they get diminishing returns out on the track? We're about 8 minutes into the session, 12 left to go right now. Looks like Greg Herback moved himself, I think, up into 3rd in class. Nope, looks like he is actually 4th right now behind Michael Galke, who actually jumps Richard Kenzie just as I say that in the 99. Gets much closer to Eli Kogan. I talked to Michael between practice and this qualifying session and asked him, what's it going to take for him to catch Eli, and his response was some stickers. So I'm guessing maybe a bit of a cash injection into that team.
Stickers make all the difference. The top 3 drivers are separated by 0.3 of a second. And actually, Blake McDonald and James Lee are fighting for the championship between those two. So Blake is currently leading the championship with James close behind. Same thing with Kevin Woods and Laura Eli in the Masters class. Those two are also battling for the championship. Kevin Woods is slightly ahead of Laura right now.
Yeah, that's about, looks like 0.3 of a second over Laura Eli. With a short lap like this, that's a pretty decent gap between them. Not insurmountable, though, especially with the time that we have left, as we're going to ride on board with Kyle Washington now. Always love seeing these onboards down through the corkscrew and then out of Rainy Curve, hugging that inside before he switches back over to set up for turn 10. Washington has been shuffled down the order since he initially was one of the fastest. He's 13th overall. Looking at his lap times, I'm not seeing him looking particularly quick. Let's see what it looks like when he crosses the start-finish line. And unfortunately, they're going to switch away before we get to that. So don't think we'll be able to tell, at least this time by. May have been a bit of a delay on our feed because I don't see him setting a time recently. In the meantime, we mentioned Jim Walsh. He still sits in 3rd, but has been shuffled down to 10th overall, so needs a little bit more pace compared to some of his compatriots to jump up the order. Sofronis now crosses the line, but doesn't improve on his 8th place. So now we're finally getting a lot less green on our timing screen, Ashley. I wonder if maybe they'll back off for a bit, try to reset the car and get back out there.
It's funny you say that. Here we're looking at Blake McDonald coming in after being on pole right now. They're probably going to see what happens from here on out, but you can certainly come into pit lane and bleed the tire pressures down and try to go back out for another lap. Actually, Sam Parnagian threw down a really quick one there and jumped him up all the way to 5th overall, 4th in class. So really nice lap by Sam there.
Sam has provided us some of our best entertainment in the paddock this weekend, as they brought, with the Peels car, they brought a Peels orange mascot costume. Some of our crew members have been trying that on, and some entertaining photos have come out of that, actually.
It's funny you say that. I pretty much ran over to his trailer to try it on myself.
Laura Eli is our next driver to stop in pit lane. And she's having a bit of a conversation with the crew. She's still sitting 6th overall, and she's 2nd in Masters right now, sitting on a 25.7 for her fastest lap, about a second off of the overall pole, which still is with Blake McDonald. James Lee needs to make up about a 1/10 of a second to take that one back. He and Blake have definitely gotten a bit of a back and forth battle going on this weekend so far.
You know, once you get past the peak of the tire, you really have to pay attention to what your lap time is currently on your dash. And if you can't beat the laps that you've already done, it's really smart to just come back into pit lane, because at the end of the day, what matters here is the race, and you want to have your tires underneath you at the end of the race. So you see a lot of these drivers coming into pit lane, they've probably already passed that peak of the tire, and they're saving the tire for the long run.
Yeah, we haven't talked about yet this weekend how one of the rules in this series is the tire that they qualify on is what they have to start the first race in. So you make a good point that maybe those drivers who feel like they've maximized, I guess, their efforts don't need to try and use too much more out of it and need to focus forward on the big picture. This is Michael Gawke on screen right now with the competition motorsports machine. Also having those pressures checked real quickly. Right now, Gawke is second in class for those Caymans. Eli Kogan still holding the pole, but it's a lot closer than what we saw in practice. It's down to 0.6 of a second. Michael continually finding speed.
Yeah, we're not really seeing anyone go a whole lot faster. There are a few still trying to throw one down there.
This might be the calm before the storm when we get to the end of the session. If some drivers think there's going to be enough rubber down from those Yokohamas that they could maybe get out there. Maybe James Lee, who's also returned to his crew. He has plenty of time to get back out on track. Like I said, that gap at only about just over 1/10 of a second could definitely be overcome if he hooks up the right lap out on track. Don't forget about Casey Dennis, his teammate, who looks very strong in this qualifying session. Struggled a bit at times, it seemed, in practice, but now he's got it underneath him. He sits third overall.
32. Those two cars have exited the racetrack.
Yeah, it's interesting watching James and Casey go after it on the racetrack, since they are also teammates. Makes things a lot more exciting for sure, especially when you're in practice, you're kind of going over each other's data and learning off of each other. And then once you go out on track again, it makes things really even between the two drivers, because you sort of adapt each other's driving styles. If someone's a little stronger in one corner and you have a strength somewhere else. So having that teammate rivalry is always a lot of fun, I think.
And it seems like they get along extremely well from what we were talking about earlier on this weekend. In spite of intense battles on track, they've been all smiles with one another once they get out of the car, joking and having fun about what they just went through. And Blake McDonald, I think, just improved, or I may be seeing something different there on the timing screen. Apologies. So, yeah, I don't think he set any faster of a lap. It's still at a 1:24.6 right now, but maybe he just exited pit lane and is starting on a new flyer. I see a lot of our dots on pit lane right now. So there's a number of drivers who have decided to stop in. Those who are out right now, I got to imagine, Ashley, have a great opportunity, because look at how clear that track is.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure the track is getting a little bit quicker as well, but always just being mindful of your tire wear. Like, James only has 5 laps total on his tires, and Blake is out there. Definitely set another 24.6, so he has 2 really good laps for both races, which is fantastic, but hopefully that doesn't affect him too much in race 1 tomorrow.
So we watch Reinhold Kron come up through, or down through the corkscrew, actually, I should say, trying to see if he can improve on his time. The 2:33 car sits in 11th right now. He races in the Masters class. He's currently 4th amongst those drivers. A little spread out this time, as we got 5 minutes remaining on the clock. So it is now dipping down to the end of it. Someone else just left pit lane to get back out there. Dennis has replaced James Lee in that pit stall for the RWE team. And looks like he is going to have just a brief chat, hopefully before he returns as well. Car looking like, oh, and we've got Reinhold off in the kitty litter out of the Andretti hairpin. And that looks like he went almost straight on. The tire marks on that have a very odd trajectory there, Ashley.
That's a tricky one because that is a big, big brake zone after coming off of a long straightaway. So it looks like he did continue, but he's potentially spreading a bit of gravel all over the track there.
That's not going to make too many people happy, I'm sure. I was trying to make out exactly what path he took because we caught the very end of that one. But thankfully, like you said, didn't hit anything. He gets back going. We've had a couple of cars have spins and offs so far this weekend. And, you know, knocking on wood, we haven't seen anybody actually get into the wall yet, which I have to imagine is probably easy to do at this track.
This track is very, very high speed. However, they have added a ton of safety features to this track, especially after the repave. You can see a lot of the really, really risky high-speed corners. They've actually added some pavement on the opposite side of the curbing there. A lot of gravel traps, as we're learning as well, which definitely saved Reinhold there. I would imagine that's a downhill brake zone and you're turning at the same time. So we actually saw some lock up there. I'm sure he just went to the brake a little too late.
Yeah, that might be a good call on that one. A couple more drivers flashing past us, looking like they're starting hot laps now with about 2.5 minutes left to go. Maybe 2 more laps or so for most of these drivers before they wrap this one up. Kyle Washington on our screen coming down through turn 3 through the infield section of this circuit. Oh, and behind him, somebody going off. In fact, I think maybe that was Washington we just saw kicking up some dirt. Try to see if I can confirm that.
Yeah, that was Kyle. Just a little wheel drop there. He continued on, maximizing the track there in turn 3.
Yeah, thankfully he didn't do what we saw a little bit earlier here today during the IndyCar practice. One of the drivers did the same thing and spun across the track, just about put it in the wall, but somehow managed to thread the needle and keep it out of the barriers. Well, we'll need to clean off those tires, will Kyle, and try again to see if he can get one last fly through here at Laguna Seca. Not sure if he's going to do that or if he's going to come into pit lane as we're watching here on the cameras. Let's see if he sends it in or if he'll carry on as we wait for him to enter in. And indeed, he will go for another lap and try again.
Kevin Woods just jumped up to 3rd overall, so he waited in pit lane for the track to grip up with Yokohama rubber and then went back out. Set out really, really fast lap there, 24.9.
1 minute remains. 1 minute.
That's pretty epic.
That is 3rd overall. So new Masters pole sitter, Jim Walsh now in 2nd in Masters. Laura Eli sitting in 3rd. Less than a minute remaining. Drivers can complete their hot laps in their qualifying sessions here if they choose to. So we'll wait to see when that checkered flag comes out, and then we see who decides to finish up that last lap. If you haven't crossed the line before that checkers comes out, then you're going to finish next time you see the start-finish line. I think we're watching French come up into the highest part of the track at the corkscrew, flying down through in that 215 machine. Luke French going to see whether or not he can get a little bit more speed out of this one, because right now he is down in 17th overall. Not sure what is plaguing that car. Checkered flag is out, and Luke actually is going to be the first one to take it. Let's see what this lap is going to look like for the 215. It was a quickest first sector for him. And he does jump up, but it's only the 14th. He's going to have some work to do, Ashley, when it comes to the race.
Yeah, the race tomorrow will definitely be interesting. Like you were saying, there's not a ton of passing opportunities here, but if you're feeling racy and risky, you might be able to make a few spots happen here. So I'm sure it'll be really exciting tomorrow.
Kyle Washington sets his personal best on the last lap around with a 1:25.9. Meanwhile, Sofronis does likewise, a 25.6. That's going to push him up into 5th overall, 4th in the Pro-Am now. So great effort by James Sofronis. Don't think we've really seen much in terms of results out of him this season, but he could still yet surprise us in that 214 machine. So keep your eyes peeled because that could be a fun one for him. Waiting for other cars to get in. We only have a handful still out on track. In fact, it looks like one of them just came into pit lane. And we have one more that can complete a lap. Otherwise, we are done for this qualifying session. Let's see, and he is pitting in. So that is it, as Jim Walsh will wrap us up. That means our provisional grid has been set for tomorrow's first race. And Blake McDonald is going to take your pole as James Lee will follow him. It was a 1/10 of a second between them. Kevin Woods will be in third in that 294, but he's our pole sitter for the Masters. Casey Dennis starting fourth overall. James Safronis, as I mentioned, last lap, put him up into fifth. Sam Parnagian, P6 for him. Jim Walsh going to be second in Masters, but start from seventh. Laura Eli and a P8 overall. Then Josh Conley and Kyle Washington will round out your top 10. That was interesting, Ashley, and got to say, we got to wait a little while, but I think we'll be rewarded come 4 o'clock tomorrow for the race.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a few classes that are a little bit spread out in between each other, so I'm sure there'll be some good battles.
Well, thank you again for joining us here, both on Flow Esports as well as on the track for Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West by Yokohama. I'm Joe Peak with Ashley Freiberg. We'll now hand you back to the track with Dick.